Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
Hello everyone, how would you like to achieve your first million in sales? And today we are with Bryan, which is the founder of Kuderna Financial Team. Not also that, but has been nominated one of the New Jersey Top 10 Financial Professionals in 2021. Welcome to the show, Bryan. Can you please briefly introduce yourself?
Hey, Harry, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. And you kind of summarized it there. You know, I've been in wealth management since 2008. I've got my own firm called Kuderna Financial Team. I love teaching people about wealth, just how to improve their lives, how to manage their money and take the stress away. And I like doing it on a large scale as well, which is why I do a lot of this media stuff and doing a little tour, pumping up my new book, which is called What Should I Do With My Money? So if people like economics, they want to understand money, they can go pick that up anywhere. And it's just a crash course on how money works and how economics works.
So tell us, how you decided to become an entrepreneur?
So that was something I feel like I knew very early on. You know, the household that I grew up in, my dad worked for the Army. My mom was a paralegal. Real nice, just kind of comfortable, modest upbringing, great neighborhood. But one of the things I think I noticed is that it seemed like there were these ceilings in place. Like you worked within a lane and you waited maybe until your supervisor or the next person retired or wanted to go for a different promotion. And then an opportunity arose that you could take. And it was so structured. And I just felt like that was not me. Like I always needed the ability to chase whatever was exciting me. And I didn't want anyone to ever put a ceiling on me. And so as I learned a little bit more in high school, we had some business electives and things. I found out that, if you become an entrepreneur or a business owner, you truly just kind of pave your own path. And that really resonated with me and my personality. So I knew that very early on that I was not going to be just a classic employee, that I had to do something where I had that type of autonomy.
So, but what was the source of inspiration? Because usually if you have in the household, because I know my parents are a teacher, they're both teachers, right? So They both have jobs, right? And they're telling me all the time, okay, you need to study hard and then find a job. This is what I've been told all my life, right? And in your house, your dad and your mom, they both have jobs. They go to work every day. They get paid at the end of the month, right?
Yeah.
And this is the type of pattern that you see it in your house, right? Mm-hmm. But then you find a different approach from the school. So what happened? Somebody went to speak, you read the book, you saw a TV show. Yep. I know that we entrepreneurs, we have something within us that say that we want to do the things in our own way. But what happened? Maybe it was a school teacher.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And so as you ask me, and I'm kind of thinking back to that time of life, like when that spark got lit, if you will, I think one of the things I would hear a lot about, again, all my family, not just my mom and dad, but even aunts, uncles, grandparents, they were always employees. They were always in the union, blue collar, post office, waste management, things like that. So
you're the only entrepreneur in your family?
Pretty much.
Wow.
And so when you ask, like, where did the spark come from? Some of the stories that I can really recall is, so again, my mom was a paralegal. She worked for a really, really successful attorney that had left the firm that he worked for, was a partner at, branched off and created his own legal practice that became extremely successful. And not only was he a good attorney, but he was also an investor. He owned a ton of real estate. And so I remember my mom coming home and saying, Frank bought this restaurant, Frank bought this hotel, he's got, this other building that they're leasing, this dealership. There were always these stories of like, man, this guy that I work for is just printing money and he never sits still. He's traveling the world, he's buying this business, buying that business. And I think that was like the little whisper in the back of my head of like, it seems like this guy, he's not in the family, but we know him well, is the most successful guy we know, and he's doing it through all these different business ventures. And so I think that may have been one of the seeds. And then, when I was in high school, I really got into reading. I was a voracious reader. I started to read, Robert Kiyosaki. I read Trump's Art of the Deal. I started to see these things and I was like, wow, this business world can be awfully exciting. And so I think from there, I mean, this is long, long before Shark Tank or anything like that existed. So I think it was really just reading that, like, man, a lot of the most successful people have been entrepreneurs and enterprising. And so that's what I really got excited by. And I just kind of said, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something where I'm in control.
But one thing is the theory, right? One thing is to read the book, and I want to be completely different ball game. Actually, is start your first business. So tell us
Sure.
what happened. How you decided to start your first business, and when you decided that, oh, you know what, I'm really gonna go for it. Tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that.
So it's funny, I guess if you want to really get technical on like what was the first business, it was trading baseball cards. And
Oh
so
wow,
if you even want to call it a business, this is going
yeah,
back when
of course it's a business.
when I was very young and I was kind of getting enthusiastic about this stuff. I always collected baseball cards as a little kid. And so when eBay came out,
I love
I was like,
baseball.
yeah,
If people pay money for it, for these things,
oh yeah.
oh
Yeah.
wow.
So, a lot of these were collectibles. And so when eBay came out, the online marketplace, I went on there and I was like, man, there's a ton of trading cards, collectibles and things. I was like, there's ones that I could buy. And then I'm like, I see other ones on there that are for sale that I own. Like I have Emmett Smith rookie cards. I have, Ken Griffey Jr. cards. And so I started to go on eBay and I would buy and sell and I just had fun with it. And I was like, this is cool. Like I'm not even going to work. I'm just doing something I enjoy and I'm making some money here. So that would probably be the very first. More in kind of the real world is when I was at the College of New Jersey, I got interviewed by a gentleman that said, we're recruiting athletes. I was playing football at the time. And I was like, all right, that's cool. So I went and I interviewed with them. And I had no idea what a financial advisor was or what they did. And I learned about, this whole world of teaching people about money, how to protect themselves, how to use their paycheck and be efficient and smart with their money. And I was like, this is cool. Like, this seems like you really get to coach people, you get to help people. And he said, another thing too is, you're going to own your own book of business from day one.
Wow.
And I was like, this is great. Let's give it a shot. And then that internship became eventually my career.
Wow, that's fantastic. Now let's talk about this because financial education is something that they don't teach us in the school, right?
Mhm.
And there is something that every single entrepreneur has to be prepared. Uh,
Sure.
let's face it, and if you can expand a little bit on this, because like 90% of the people that win the lottery, they lose the money. Uh,
Sure.
so, so what is the reason behind? The reason behind is that they don't have um, the foundations of this financial education, right? So
Sure.
can you
Sure.
cover a little bit more about this, about how important is financial education and how it's important for everyone? Because I know, we hear from artists that they are in bankrupt, right? So it
Correct.
doesn't matter if you are very successful, are you making multi-millions, or you have a small business. If you don't have the right financial education, you can take a wrong decision, lose it all, right?
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head, Harry. It's a combination of financial education, financial literacy, but then also just good habits. And so that's what, especially when I'm talking to like large audiences, I really try and simplify things because I find that some people when they hear about money, if they're bad with money, there's usually two root causes I hear about. Number one, they say, I just don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't want to be bothered. They kind of throw in the towel and they say, I'm not putting together a budget or a financial plan. It's like Greek to me. That I think is a very poor excuse because, it may not be the most exciting topic or it might not be in your wheelhouse, but it's a
It's your
responsibility that
freedom.
we have. Yeah. And so we need to, whether we like it or not, we need to at least spend a little bit of time on it. And if we simplify things, it does not need to be confusing at all. That's number one. And then number two is people that just have very poor money habits. And so I often equate, health and wealth kind of hand in hand. And I always tell people, the person out there that says, you know what, I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to exercise for 30 minutes. I'll take my walk. I'll do some push-ups and jumping jacks or whatever. And I'll just follow the food pyramid. I mean, think about it. How simple is that? It's not maybe the easiest thing to have that routine every day, but it's so simple. I mean, there's nothing confusing about that. I would take that person every day over the week over someone that reads every single fitness magazine under the sun, but they have no routine. And every day, every week, they're not really sure if they're going to exercise or not. And they're eating dessert before dinner. So that's just classic habits. And it's the same thing with money. If we pay ourselves first, if we live modestly, if we save a little bit of every paycheck, you don't need to be a genius to do that. It's just a strong discipline that we follow. And then if we want to enhance that, then just like on the health side, yeah, we can start learning about, cutting edge exercises, how to fine tune my diet to my body type. It's the same thing with money. We can start to learn more about investing and tax planning and how to leverage these different things to make something that's pretty good become great. And that's where I help out really as a financial advisor is say, all right, I can't help so much with the discipline. I'll try and motivate you. But if you're a saver and you have good habits, then I can flip that switch where we can really start to make your money make a lot of money. And that's that combination we want of discipline and good habits with financial know-how. And that's a really good mix. It doesn't matter what line of work that you're in.
But what message you have for these people, for example, like, for example, your parents or my parents, right? These people they wake up every day, they work 40 hours a week. They are used to get the salary
Yep.
at the end of the month, whatever it is, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, whatever it is, right? So they used to work for the whole month, right? And then to make the salary, right? And then
Yep.
you come and then you tell them, listen, we're going to do something. We're going to take some money. We're going to invest it in an asset, could be a property or something else. And guess what? You guys will get the same amount, 5K, without even having to work at all. And so the people are telling, oh, this is too good to be true. So which message do you have for these people, which is the majority of the people thinking? Because when you go to a financial advisor, when you go and somebody that regularly work all their life, and you say, listen, if you have some savings, I can put it in an asset and can produce the same money that you make every month, and then you don't have to work. The people, 80% of the people think that that this is too good to be true. So which message do you have for these people?
Sure. So I'd answer that a couple ways, like going back to my parents or folks like that just say, hey, I work 40 hours a week. I'm just trying to get by. I don't really know all of this stuff. My parents, just to kind of use them as an example, they had the really good habits in the discipline. They didn't have really the financial know-how. They certainly weren't investors, but they knew, back from their parents and from the Great Depression era, okay, I'm going to live within my means. I'm going to save for the rainy day. I'm not going to carry a lot of debt. And I'm just going to have a smart plan month after month after month. And it was very basic, but it was effective. And we lived a nice, comfortable, modest lifestyle. And that was kind of our childhood. Now, this was long before there was any like online platforms and trading and so forth. So sometimes like when I, for say in high school, started to learn about investing, and I'd say to my dad, hey, why don't we buy shares in whatever, Nike or whatever company? He would then reply, oh, Brian, like we don't have that kind of money. You got to be rich to do that. You got to have a lot of money to be an investor. And that was somewhat true. I mean, at that time, yeah, you did have to have an actual stockbroker that you would call up and say, hey, I want to buy X shares of Microsoft or whatever.
That was expensive.
Yeah, so it was expensive. So there was some truth to that, but there wasn't such barriers of entry that you had to be quote unquote rich to ever start investing. And I think that's kind of the big thing nowadays is everybody, even if you're a kid with $100, you can actually start, in theory, investing. So the barriers to entry are gone. And I think the big thing to kind of your question of someone that is a novice to this, and they're like, wait a minute, I can put my money somewhere and it works for me. What I do for my clients that are kind of in that boat is I do let them know, yeah, if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. And so what I'll show is, illustrations and charts of, okay, if we do a certain thing, here's what the potential outcome is, but there's a cost to that. And
The
you
risk
have
involved,
to,
right? Yeah.
yeah, you got to elaborate on the reality of it. And the cost to that is usually patience. Okay. It's not something that I put my money there and next year I retire. It's something where I put my money there and I do so for 10, 15, 20 years. And then I have that freedom and that financial freedom. So I think that's one thing is patience. And then the other thing is discipline of, staying the course. And this is where most investors screw up, normal investors is they say, all right, I want to put my money here. I won't pay attention. But then I turn on the news one night and I read a headline or I see something and I freak out. And then I start playing with that. And I think that's when I always tell people an emotional investor is a bad investor. That's something too that you really got to be able to kind of tune out the noise and stick to a plan. And again, that's where, as an advisor, that's a part of my job to help people with.
Tell us about your book. What inspired you to write the book? Because I wrote several books and it's a big job.
Yep.
What made you think this was a good idea to go to this Titanic adventure,
Yeah.
which is write the book? Yeah.
Yep. So I wrote my first book, which was it's probably about 10 years ago now. It's called
Wow.
Millennial Millionaire. And I always loved writing, so it wasn't so strenuous. I know it's hard for every author, but that was part memoir, part kind of financial tips for a young professional was Millennial Millionaire. And it was fun. It helped a lot of people out. It got a lot of traction with the media. But then what I always thought is you get so many questions of, well, hey, Bryan, why do this? Why do that? I heard on this podcast I should be doing this. There's all these whys behind all the financial decisions that we make. So my latest book, again, What Should I Do with My Money? Which I have a copy, if you could probably see behind me. It's
Oh,
this
show it to us. Show it to us.
the
What is
gold
it?
title. Yep.
I like the cover. Very good.
Yeah, this is it. So you can see it. It's gold, and you'll see
Where
it on
is
any
it? In
book.
Amazon?
It's everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's published by McGraw-Hill, so you
Oh,
can.
look, it's very thick. A
Kinda,
lot of pages. Yeah. How many pages or how many words do you think I have? 70 something?
yeah. So it's
So
about 220 pages.
wow.
Yeah. In that one, what I wanted to do with this book is answer all those whys so that when someone sits down and they say, okay, I want to invest here, or I want to look into this insurance or create such and such a plan, and they're saying, well, why do that versus the alternative? That was what this book was all about, is teaching some people, the economics behind finance so that when they say, okay, this is my plan, then they have that conviction, they have that belief in it because they understand kind of how money works, how it flows through micro and macroeconomics. And that was the impetus for this book. So it was kind of like the follow-up or like the foundation to the other financial how-to books.
Yeah. So Bryan, tell us the blueprint from the book. What are the 5 steps to make your first million?
Yeah, so 5 steps to make your first million. And I jotted down a couple notes I wanted to share here. So I think number one, you got to work extremely hard and you have to work for yourself. Okay. So I think you have that autonomy, you have that control, and then you can't avoid the fact, especially as an entrepreneur, that it is going to be extremely hard and you're going to have to work through a lot of ups and downs. That's number one. Number two, in my belief, is to start creating your own brand quickly. So whether you're working and you have a side hustle or you're starting this new business, be it brick and mortar or a service, begin branding yourself quickly. And that's one thing that I did as a financial advisor is rather than align myself, with the umbrella agency I worked with or any parent companies, I quickly wanted to create my own entity so that every day I was out there, I was building my own brand, Kuderna Financial Team. Number three, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard this about a unique value proposition. You need to have something that's unique where you stand out amongst the pack. So you're not just every other pizzeria, you're not just every other financial advisor. There's something appealing about going to your place of business or working with you that is different than all the masses out there. So be unique, and then you don't want to be easily repeatable. So that's where I think you need to have kind of that just one little thing that the other guys don't have. Number four, you want to scale quickly. Okay. So you want to have a service or a product that then you can start to duplicate very quickly. And I think more often than not, that's where you can leverage technology to say, okay, I've created a process or I've created a product. It's good. It can sell. It's unique. People like it. Now I need to be able to redo that thousands of times without a whole lot of more effort. So I think scalability is critical. And then last but not least, number five is to invest aggressively and live modestly. And when I say invest aggressively, I don't mean, just roll the dice and pick the craziest, double your money idea out there. I mean your savings rate, how much of your earnings you should be aggressively putting that away into investing for the future so that you quickly get a lot of your money working for you. And then that will take the pressure off sooner than later as you get to watch kind of that snowball compound. And I think that's the last step, is to aggressively invest your money. And you have to live modestly when you do that, unless you hit the jackpot, which is great. Most people, they're going to have to tighten the belt and then put that money, into their business or into the future.
Yeah. And then, Bryan, is it true that if you know what you're doing, is it true that probably you can double your money in a short period of time, or this is just a myth that they are out there that they're simply not true?
Yeah, so I think that short period of time is relative. Some people might say, "Hey, if I could double my money by the time I retire in 30 years, I'll be happy." Of course, that should be very easy to do. If they're saying, "I want to double my money this year," then is it possible? Yes, but it's going to require two things. Number one, a ton of luck, that you do something extremely risky and it pays off. All right, so you got to be aware of that. Or number two, you found a good idea, you found a good concept, and you work tirelessly at it between now and the following year. Then yeah, it's possible to double your money if you have that work ethic, the idea, and a little bit of luck. But again, as a financial advisor, like what I'm doing for all of my clients that I talk with, that's certainly not the goal that I'm preaching. Yes, we can double your money, but we're going to do it over time. And we're going to do it by following a philosophy, not by just saying, hey, let's throw it out here and fingers crossed we get lucky next year. That's obviously not a good long-term plan.
It's about doing it in a sustainable way, right? Because it's just take the calculated risk, and I would rather than gamble. There is a big difference between gamble and have a calculated risk. Yeah, of course.
Correct. And just to that point, Harry, this is what I've seen too, is that lucky, 1 or 2% that did double their money, in a year or whatever, oftentimes then they lose it all. Because the chance of kind of catching lightning in a bottle twice back to back is even far more rare. So then they get this sense of hubris where they're like, hey, I did it once, I'll just keep doing it. And then when they go to try it round two, reality strikes and it's like, oh my gosh, that wasn't as easy as I thought it was. So that's just kind of a word to the wise.
It becomes gambling rather than take a calculated risk. Yeah,
that's right.
I think that anything that we can do out there to spread the word about financial education, because I think that if all more people are aware about the financial education, how important it is, right? I think that we a large amount of the population have a huge concern around money, right?
Yep.
And everybody wants to have money. Everybody wants to travel the world. Everybody wants to spend more time with the family. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to have more time holiday. The other day I usually go to dance salsa here in London. I was speaking with a friend. Mm-hmm. and a friend was telling me, I'm going to India. And I'm like, I mean, from London to India is a long time. And I asked him, how long you going for? And he's telling me 4 days. And I'm like, man, how come you're gonna give this long trip for 4 days? We usually, when we go for US, usually we go for 3 weeks a month. We take long
Yeah,
trip. We better stay a month or something, right?
sure, sure.
So, and he told me something that the that shocked me. He told me, Harry, the issue is that I only have 4 days left for holiday,
Hmm.
and it kept me thinking that because in the last 17 years being an entrepreneur, and kept me thinking like, wow, how far my mindset is from that person that has a job that they need to use the days holidays that he told me, Harry, my parents came here to London, so I took days holidays, so now I need to see them
Yep.
again. But now, yeah, so it's like I'm like, wow, he's gonna spend a fortune only for 4 days.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
and all this can be taken away in a huge time if people learn more about financial education. They will be able
Correct.
to have
Yep.
3 month holiday if they want, or 6 month holiday if they want, and they can get the money work for them. So, what do you
Sure.
think? How can we help people to get out of this rat race?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the big thing is, it's okay to want the finer things in life. It's okay to want that 2 week vacation that you were just mentioning. You just got to recognize that they're not free. That anything worth having is going to take some hard work, and it's also going to take some risk. Okay, there's going to be those moments where you're like, I don't know if I should do it. I can either just kind of take the comfortable route and keep doing what I know, or do I take that bit of a leap of faith and say, well, let me try this, even if I do get knocked down and I've got to work through it? And not everybody can do that, or not everybody's ready to do that. So I think that's kind of the reality of it. And, this isn't to say everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. Believe me, there's a large part of the population that wants to be in the rat race, and they want that certainty of, hey, I wake up at 9, I punch out at 5,
I'm
my
safe.
day's over. And if
I
that's
don't need
your
to worry after 5. I don't need to worry about anything else
Yes.
anymore.
Yeah. And if that's your personality and you understand that, then by all means do that. But then you have to kind of be comfortable with what that allows and affords you, because you kind of have to take the good with the bad. But as far as financial literacy and how to just go from kind of good to great, again, I've tried to lay all of that out that I've learned over the past 15 plus years in this book. Again, what should I do with my money? This is
Love the
kind of the
title.
roadmap for how it all works. And I think if people read that, if nothing else, they'll have such a better understanding of our economy and how this whole structure got to where we are and what the future looks like. And then when you understand that, kind of when you get in the know, now you can make informed decisions. And I think that's the thing, is you want to understand the rules of the game, and then you want to simplify it. And then from there, it's kind of like, all right, now it's yours to lose. All right, you know how it works. Go do it, or decide, hey, I don't really want to, but then, you kind of suffer the consequences.
So then, Brian, what was the biggest setback that you had in business, and how you overcome that setback?
Sure. So I think there were certainly a number of them, as any entrepreneur will attest to. For me, I think the one that comes to mind is when I started out, I was 21 years old. You come into a business as a financial planner. Bear in mind, like I said, all of my family, this was so new. They didn't even know what the heck I was doing. They'd never really met a financial
They might
advisor.
thought that you might be crazy.
They did think I was crazy. And so you come in day one and it's like, all right, there is no salary. All right. There's no safety net. It's go out there and find clients, get all your education, your licensing, your designation, all this stuff. And then almost like out of thin air, create a book of business and gather all these assets to manage and so forth. So in your early 20s, without much of a network, I was like, all right, I'm learning, but I don't even know which way to turn or who to talk to. And so I think that was not that it was really a setback. It was almost like a delayed start,
Challenge.
where I got in the business and I was like, I don't know where to go. And I think that was the hardest part, is that in those first 2, 3 years, every day felt like, I don't know if this is even sustainable. I might have to go get a normal job out there. But I tried to kind of follow this blueprint in my mind of, all right, go out there and start to get networking. Go door to door with businesses, go network with other professionals and meet their clients and their book of business, and just try and give out and help so much. And then naturally people will come back to you and say, hey, Bri, can you help me with my 401k or whatever? And there, that required a lot of faith early on to just keep doing and doing and doing.
From where do you go that the drive?
I think
What
it
made
was
you don't give up? I think that we all think at some point in our entrepreneur's life, like, oh my God, I can't
so.
take it anymore. I better, give up, find another job, and that's it. This is not for
So
me.
there's
So
two things. I
what
think,
happened after those thoughts that then you can keep going?
sure. So I think a part of it was sometimes you would go to like these industry conferences and there would be this guy on the stage, that says, hey, I started like you, 30 years later, look at me now, I'm worth millions and millions of dollars. I drive a Ferrari. I've got, 5 houses and helping thousands of clients. And you would just see something like that and be like, okay, it is possible. Like I think I've seen that there are people that actually do this. So that you had that little glimmer of hope. And then honestly, the other thing I think was just being stubborn. So that when I did have those family members come to me and they're like, Bri, what the heck are you doing? Like, you got a college degree, go find a job and get a paycheck. And there was a part of me of like, I'm going to show you, like, I'm going to keep doing this thing. And someday you'll see that it's different, that I don't need to punch a clock every single day and I can do even way better. And so I wanted so badly to kind of prove that to people and then also to myself. And eventually, thank God, it kind of all worked out.
Wow, fantastic. And then, Brian, what message do you have for the entrepreneurs out there that they are facing tough challenges? But because this is the other thing as well, that the entrepreneurs out there, they can create a successful business, but
Sure.
if they don't carefully plan and the finance, all the success, they can actually lose it all, right? So
Correct.
what,
So I think
what,
for the entrepreneur that's in a rough patch, what I would tell them is if it's a real rough patch, number one, reevaluate what your product or your service is. And when you do that, when you really kind of dive under the hood and say, okay, this is what I'm doing, you're going to find out either A, I'm not that passionate about it, or B, I don't really think there's a market for this. Like now that I'm really looking at it, maybe what the world's telling me is correct, that it's not the right thing. If that's the case, you've got to be humble enough and real enough to say, okay, maybe I need to move on to the next idea. All right. Or the other outcome is going to be as you do that, you're going to say, man, I love this. And it just like builds all this passion in me all over again. And okay, now you got to fight through it. Like maybe you really do have something there. It's just a normal rough patch and you got to work through it. And if that's the case, I think a really good thing to do is to talk to someone. And that someone, if it's either a mentor or B, someone else that you've seen in that similar business that's successful, and you can reach out to them. And people love to talk about their ups and downs, their trials and tribulations. So just reach out to that person and say, hey, it looks like you did this and you did it really well. I'm in this rough patch right here. Can you just tell me what your thoughts are and give me a piece of advice? And I think people would be really surprised to find out how many good people out there, how many successful people are willing to kind of lend a helping hand when you're down and out. And I think that can kind of give you that little boost, maybe a new idea, a new take on things to get past that rough patch.
so then, Brian, for the entrepreneurs that they might be listening this podcast in Spotify, Apple, or in our social media, they might get inspired for what you're just sharing out of the conversation. How they can find you to find some inspiration, again, where they can find your book. Can you share with us how they can find more information from you?
Yeah, definitely. So again, my book is called What Should I Do with My Money? Economic Insights to Build Wealth Amid Chaos. That's available wherever books are sold in paperback, Kindle, or audiobook. And then I have a podcast called the Kuderna Podcast where we talk about health, wealth, and have a lot of really cool content on there. And then if they go on any social media and just type Kuderna, Kuderna, that's where you'll find my handles everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, etc. And all my content from the book, the podcast and stuff, we push that all out there. So go check it out and feel free to keep in touch.
Thank you so much, Bryan. That has been fantastic. And from every single one of you listening the podcast and follow us in our social media, remember, it doesn't matter what business you're on. You have to work in your financial education and your financial planning. So like this, you have a solid foundation that it doesn't matter if your business at the end work or not, you manage to, the money you make allocated in different assets so you can build wealth in the long time. Because remember, business, sometimes you think that business is going well, that you're making a lot of money, but the market can change, the technology can change, anything can happen. And if you don't have plan for the finance well, then you can lose it all, right? So thank you so much, and see you in our next episode of Unstoppable. Thank you so much, Bryan, and see you everyone our next episode of Unstoppable, how brave entrepreneurs break that wall and achieve the first million. Bye for now.
Thanks, Harry.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.